Hi, I'm Kathy Boyd Fellure. Welcome to TSPN TV's Authors, Writers, Books and Beyond show. I'm your host for tonight. And before I introduce you to my lovely guests, I want to talk a little about the bookstore downstairs and next door, Hine & Company, and what a treasure trove. If you go in there, you've got to go upstairs and downstairs, and there's new and rare and used books, and you could pack a lunch and spend the day, really. And they do have a table there, and coffee and tea, and offer room for, book clubs and critique groups and workshops. Sarah Pearson runs nonfiction workshops there. Upstairs, they have a new movie mystery theater. And I'm not sure what's coming up next, but you can always look them up and find out, and take a friend. It's a lovely literary event. And my critique group actually meets in Ione, where I live, at Clark's Corner. And Craig Clark has a lovely establishment there. His wife, Lou, is the person that started their Storytime for Children, which I read once or twice a month, Tuesday mornings at 9. And I'm hoping to see a great influx of kids coming in this summer during break. They just had their first softball league. They do all kinds of things there, entertain. I meet every other week there with the fiction writers and amateur fiction writers group. And great food, great special programs, too. So gone to Main Street in Ione and check it out. There are only 3 blocks, so you cannot miss it. Big yellow building. And welcome again. Welcome to the show. I'm just back from a week's vacation at Tahoe, and it was hard to come back. But here I am, and I missed my book club. You hear me talking about it on the show all the time. Well, these are some of the bookies. On my right, I'd like to introduce Sylvia Troppmann, and we meet at her house. And on my left here is Eileen and Gwen. And I think you came after me or before me?
After you.
After, yeah. She's more regular than me right now, though. I missed last night. So I'm going to ask them, this is what I missed last night, and I'm sure I missed a great discussion. So before we get into, I'm cheating here, I'm going to ask Sylvia to tell you how they began and everything, because I drive about an hour and a half commute down there in traffic, if I'm in traffic. If I'm not speeding, but, lucky on the road, it's a little faster. So this is an older copyright date.
Yeah, 1954 it was copyrighted.
Yeah, it's the first time.
Yeah.
And this is called The Color of Water. So I'm curious, we were talking a little before we went on the air. What did you guys decide?
What did we decide about that book? Well, we all had different thoughts about the book, and one of the thoughts was, it lacked a little luster. Someone else said, I loved it. It was the best. So see, that's what happens in book clubs.
Yeah, and one of the gals said, I'm kind of tired of reading about guys who have questions about their moms and are trying to work out their own problems. We had a couple of books like that that we've read.
Yes.
And we wondered how come there weren't any books with girls struggling with their moms. They're probably out there, but we haven't read them.
What about you, Gwen?
I missed that one.
Oh, you missed that one. You told me that.
Yeah.
And I missed Tanya last night.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't put it down, and then I had to. I got a third of the way into it, and then real life, kicked in.
Yes.
Well, it's an interesting book because it's about a Jewish white woman who marries a black Baptist preacher. And actually, she marries a second husband after that one passes away, and they have 12 children. And the children are saying, what color am I? And, Mom, how come I don't look like you? And are you really my mom? At one point, James McBride asks, was I adopted?
Because did my brother tell him?
Yeah. And where the title comes from is really interesting, too, because there is a lot of question about color. And at one point, one of the children says, well, Mom, what color is God? And she says he's the color of water, because God is not a color, and she didn't want her children raised thinking about color. She wanted them to be good people.
And I thought that was a really wise answer.
I did too.
I thought that was probably better than I could have come up with.
Yeah.
But I think she'd been thinking about it for years.
Well, maybe about the whole color issue. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a blunt woman, and she was quick-witted and quick on the draw. Her mind was bang. And so she was able to answer a lot of the questions quickly. She was astute.
And she'd lived through a lot. That was hard for me because because we switch POV, point of view, chapter to chapter. And I didn't mind that at all. That wasn't bumpy for me because I knew whose POV I was going to and after that. But the more you learned about her tragic life, and it was tragic.
Yes, it was.
It was hard. And there were, I think, little snippets that I knew she'd been sexually abused by her father before.
Yes.
Before it came up. I just had a feeling, and then I was hoping I was wrong.
Yes.
And I wasn't.
No.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why she never talked about her past to her children for so many years until he just decided to dig it out of her. And, I mean, even the first opening lines where she talks about, I'm dead. Well, she was dead to her Jewish culture because they actually had, buried her in a sense. And so he never really talked about it.
Was that shocking to you?
I did know that once they leave their religion, the family says to them, "You are no more. We will bury you." And especially, I think when she became a Christian, she was unknown.
Right.
That I knew.
However, there are some happy endings about it because this is a anniversary book, so it has a little bit of a prologue, I guess, after, is that what you call it?
Yeah, the epilogue.
Yeah, and epilogue, where because her sister, who she had been estranged from, read this book, she was reconnected with her sister.
Which was wonderful, because that was the hardest part.
It was hard to lose
even harder than
everybody.
her mother dying. It was her sister, and because her sister begged her not to go, and she promised not to, even though she knew she was. So that was, to me, one of the main real issues in it. If you dig deep, no one dealt with anything.
Yes.
Ever.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't matter if it was big or small, and especially the deep emotional stuff. And she was more accepted and loved within his family than her own.
Well, let me ask you something, Kathy. Did you see a lot of love in that book?
No, I thought there was a lot of absence of it. I think her first husband that she so dearly loved truly did love her.
Exactly.
And until then, no.
No.
Well, and we asked about the fact that, growing up, she did never receive any love. So how could she really give out that much love? It was pretty closed. And yet, what was important to her and was said throughout the book was your education and your relationship with God. And that was straightforward.
I think once she became born again, she truly accepted all the forgiveness she needed. And she was reborn.
Oh, that's interesting that you saw it that way.
I did. I think that she continued to struggle. I mean, her kids, 12 children, and the author she was pregnant with him when her husband that she dearly loved died.
Right.
Yes.
And she had a breakdown.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
But she was a pretty strong woman. You read times where she was coming home from work at 2 a.m., getting off of a bus and walking through Black Harlem, a white woman by herself. I don't think any of us would be caught doing that.
Well, I don't know that I could have.
And she said it was her faith in God that kept her feeling safe.
And this was in 1939 when this just wasn't even approved of. In fact, I don't think they ever really got married by the state. I think they got married in the church, but the state would not have let that happen in those days.
Well, they went and applied. I remembered reading that, and no one would even talk to them.
Right.
And their reception, there was 5 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
5 people, including the pastor that married them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what I found was a lot of truth was in here. I think a lot of truth that came out eventually because he went digging.
Yes.
And he was 8 of 12. He was the 8th of 12. I know I'm the second of 8. So I thought, oh, numbers that are bigger than ours. Bigger numbers.
Well, then the neat miracle of that whole family is they all became very professional, well-educated nurses, doctors, journalists. I mean, just scientists.
Teachers,
I mean,
social workers.
so this woman had something going big time that I didn't see a lot of, but Eileen saw a lot more of it than I did. I didn't see her pushing them.
Okay.
But it's good to get together to see what each other sees so that I can get, that I enjoy the book more.
Yeah, the other point of view.
Well, and that's part of being in a book club, is
We don't all agree.
Yeah, somebody will read it and say, I loved it. And it's like, well, tell us why then. You know?
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
So why did you love it?
I loved it, I think, on many different levels for certain reasons. I found it very different.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about it and never read it back when it came out. So
Yeah.
it surprised me.
Yeah.
It was nothing I could relate to in my own personal life whatsoever, so therefore it was something very different. And we're going to take our first break here pretty soon, but we'll come back, and that kind of flew by, so please join us, and you'll hear more from Gwen. Thanks for the first quarter, and we'll see you in a little bit.
You're watching your local television network, You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, welcome back to our second segment of Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. If you just joined us, I'm Kathy Boyd Fellure, and my book club is here tonight with me. These are the Bookies, and I'm going to talk to Gwen, because like me, she missed book club last night to discuss this. But I would like to ask you, and by the way, her full name is Gwen Friesen, why are you in the book club?
Well, I am in the book club because I needed somebody to be responsible to so that I would be compelled to read. As a kid, I read all the time. Went to the library, could walk there, took home 2, 3, 4 books at a time. Devoured them, took them back. I would do that a couple of times a week. So I've been a reader. When I was newly young married, I went to the library, got a card. I would go get books. I would read till 2 and 3 in the morning. Well, guess who that didn't set well with? So then I got so that I didn't get books. And so lots of years have passed, and I was always a little jealous when I was working. They would talk about the book club, these good books they were reading. And when I retired, I said, that's one of the first things I'm going to do. So they let me in.
Did you know them through work?
Not through work, but through life.
Okay.
Through our
You thought you were going to have all that extra time to do all the reading.
I did.
And how many of these books are you reading at the last minute? Lots
of
of them. So it's
them.
still time you have to set aside a time to put the reading
I
into
like
your
to
life.
read them at the last minute, though, and I think Peg does
I
too, to remember
I
them.
do.
I do
start
that as
off by
well.
reading them right away, and then as soon as I'm done, I just turn around and read them again. And you wouldn't believe how much more you gain if you read it the second time, because you kind of know what's going to go on.
Well, I'm sure that's true. That's true for some movies, too.
Right.
You just see
That's
more
true. I do
the
go a second time if I like it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's true. I have to like it. Some of them it's like, no, I'm not reading that one again.
Well, that kind of leads into me asking Sylvia how this was born.
Well, I am the type of person that needs to talk things over. I need to dig deep. I need to know what each person has thought, because I've had my own thoughts about the author, the character, or whatever, or even the narrator. I want to talk about the narrator. I want to talk to somebody. And so I went out and found myself some girls that would want to talk about books.
And how long ago was that?
It was 09, I think 08 or 09.
Wow.
06.
No. But
Well, anyway, it's been a while.
yeah, it's been a while.
Well, and you've been there the whole time.
Well, and how many books have you read? Did you count them all?
I think 700 in my mind.
Oh, I came late because I have not read that many.
But every
And-
month, we choose a book pretty much for every month.
And in the summer, sometimes a longer one.
Yeah, well, like this summer, I think we're going to take 2 months to read our next book.
Yeah,
Because
our
people
average.
are kind of, I don't know, the books are 700 pages. We need a little bit longer time.
Yeah, the book thief.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was only a month long.
Did you read the book
I
Thief?
read the book Thief, and I saw the movie. I waited to see the movie till I read the book.
Yeah.
And Tanya invited me.
Okay.
Tanya, because we were in a writers group, and we had kind of quit meeting.
Yeah.
And we were trying to reconnect, and one thing we do as writers is we read books. I read them voraciously, yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of time it's manuscripts and work-related.
Yeah.
You know, books for review for publishers. So the idea of a pleasure cruise, I was so
for the fun of
excited.
it.
And you know, the neat thing about a book club is you can dig. You can dig into the, now why did he say is this way instead of was this way? What was he really meaning? There's something behind that. So we would dig and we would hear each other say, well, I thought it was this way, and someone else would say, I didn't see it that way at all. I think that it was this way. And all of a sudden I have a new look at the book. I have a new feeling or a new thought about the book. So it's a pleasure to me. It really is. And
It
of
is
course,
to me.
I like the socialness of a book club.
Yeah, I like that too, especially when you're gardens and
Yes.
producing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And really, we've done some fun social things that have been a spin-off out of the book club. Like sometimes it's about the food in the book. I mean, we certainly had to have chocolate pie after reading The Help
Oh my gosh.
without the extra ingredients. Like
And
when
you
we-
all know what that was.
when we read the Team of Rivals, which was about Lincoln and his cabinet. Well, I happened to have a Civil War garb, and so I got into my corset and my dress and my hoop skirts, and it was just a fun thing to be a
She
part
was
of that.
gorgeous, just gorgeous.
And the blue umbrella. I have a picture of you with the umbrella.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and then,
Yes.
like-
And that was a wonderful surprise, that book.
Yeah, and
That
next-
was
I
great.
think next week, several of us are going down to the Crocker to see the quilt exhibit because we read that book about Sarah Grimke.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. And this, what was that one?
Well, anyway, look at that one. But anyway, there was a story about the story quilts, and now we want to go see the real thing.
When was that?
That was
Is that
last
during the
week.
week you're going?
Invention
We're
of
going
Wings.
next Thursday.
Thursdays are good for
Yeah,
me.
Thursday morning. It was called the Invention of Wings.
Sue,
Oh,
Yeah.
that was last month.
Yeah, that
Sue
was
Monk
last
Kid.
month.
Mhm.
Oh, that beautiful writing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, beautiful writing. And that's been another eye-opener in reading so many different kind of authors and, really enjoying the poetry of prose-type books.
Her book especially.
Her
Right.
book and The Book Thief, the wording in that was just beautiful.
You know, I read one that Pam, that Sarah and I meet with for a critique group, said, this is like your novel, The Language of the Lake. And I said, oh, that's bad, because then, they're not going to publish me if they published her. But what beautiful writing.
Beautiful, right?
Yes.
Oh, The Lake of Dreams.
The
And
Lake.
the minute I saw The Lake of, and I thought, I haven't suggested it yet, but it is, I have already read the whole book. I couldn't put it down. It's similar but dissimilar. It's a different lake and a different story. It goes between Japan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
See,
it has
she was
a-
looking for her pencil to write it down.
Yeah,
The Lake
I
of
was.
Dreams.
The Lake of Dreams. I will.
Book title.
Will you, tell me afterward. I need to remember
It's-
that.
Oh, I should have brought it. Then you could have just taken it home.
Yeah, I would have loved to have done that. In fact, we have last month we started out with a book, and the book became very ugly and very
The kind of book
unpretty.
we want to read in this group.
And so I typed all the girls and said stop, and so they sent their books back, and we started another book that we had heard was good. And it became it wasn't ugly, it just wasn't, it wasn't.
It's like you want to read good literature. You want to read something and say that was worthwhile. And if you
Worth your
don't feel
time.
that it's worthwhile, then
What's the point?
Yeah.
So we stopped. So The Color of Water was the book that we finally agreed on,
So you only had 2 weeks to read it in.
Yeah. So it was. We don't.
It's been kind of hard to find books now. It used to be when we were just starting, everybody had a book they had read that they wanted to be together to discuss. Or we knew people in a book club, and I would always say, well, what's your book club reading? You want to go by recommendations, because then somebody says, this is really good, you ought to read it. But when you kind of have taxed that and run out of ideas, then you're down to, well, what does the newspaper say, or what is Amazon recommending for me? And some of that's okay.
They're not my first choice.
But that's not my first choice, exactly.
Or Oprah, sometimes,
Or Oprah. But, and a lot of those books are good, but my criteria kind of is, if it's not a book that I want to pass on to my daughter, then it's not a good book to me.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to pass
sometimes my
it on.
daughter reads them at the same time. And then I was thinking, my sister joined us briefly. How did Sean come in? You and Peg were at a book signing of mine in Roseville.
Maybe, yeah,
and
we were talking
so
about.
misses us.
Yeah.
She has been to 2 different book clubs since then, and their meetups from online, their meetup book clubs, which we're not.
Yeah, this is a friendship. You mean?
I didn't either, but I found out from my sister when she retired and had all this time, and I was so thrilled she was in a book club with me. She had also time to finally have a social life. And so it's an online, they call them meetup groups.
So you're only doing a discussion online and you're typing your...
No. A lot of them meet in person.
Oh, they do.
Wow.
But they're very different than us. She said nobody goes deep.
Yeah.
She hasn't, and
Yeah.
she misses that. And I said, well, that's why I struggle and beg them, please keep me, even though I can't make all the meetings. And I guess we've both had spotty attendance this year, but they still love us, right?
They do.
We actually let people come who haven't even read the book, just for the fun of it.
Yeah,
And I don't think we've ever really had pizza. Sometimes people want to come to a book club just for pizza, but we haven't really had pizza.
Yeah.
We talk about the books every
It's
time
about
that
the
we
book.
meet.
It's about a good 2 hours.
the book. Yeah.
There's no pizza.
And we'll read out of the books. We'll read little things that meant a lot to us and say, now, what do you think about that? And it's just, we dig. I love
Well,
that.
all my books, and I will show you this, are all marked up like this.
Yes.
They're dog-eared.
Yes.
I write,
Questions.
and some things, I don't know if the author would mind, but some of them just so speak to me that, and it's something I don't want to forget to bring up in book club. And pretty much whoever suggests it leads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Not
If
always.
we don't, then we let Sylvia lead. And
I think I've been with you 3 years.
I think you've been
been
longer
there
than
more
that.
than
I think
that.
you've
Because I
probably
started
been
at Murray House at Tanya's.
Yes, you did.
Okay, is that longer?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes, longer.
And I had much better attendance then. Because I
Yes.
used to stay with my friend Karen.
Yes.
And so I've been in book clubs before, and actually I've been asked to lead one up here, and I declined because I said, no, I've got the perfect book club, I'm in for life. Unless they kick me out for spotty attendance, I don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
When you find something special.
Yes. Well,
And
thank you,
This
Kathy.
is special. I think
It's nice
so.
to hear.
It's not flattery, it's truth, because Sylvia will dig deep into that, too.
The next question I want to ask all of you, and you especially, is because you showed us your book, and it was all...
I got to wrap it up, but we'll come right
Okay.
back to it in the next segment, so please come back, because I know you're dying to know what Sylvia's going to ask. Bye.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hello, and welcome back to our third segment. And you poor people, you missed out on our 3-minute break discussion.
Yes.
And it was really interesting. So let's try and get back there. You were asking a question.
I want to ask a question. If you enjoy reading on your Kindle or on your iPad, does that feel good to you?
Do you do it?
I have tried it twice with 2 books.
And?
I am so sad not to have a book in my hands.
Me too.
It's sadness. And let me just read you something that came from the End of Your Life Book Club. And this is what that fellow said. Can I read it?
Oh, yes.
Okay. He says, electronic books live out of sight and out of mind, but printed books have body. They have presence. Sure, sometimes they'll elude you by hiding in improbable places, in a box of old picture frames, say, or in the laundry basket wrapped in a sweatshirt. But at other times, they'll comfort you, and you'll literally stumble over some tomes you hadn't thought about in weeks or years. I often seek electronic books, but they never come after me. They make me feel, but I can't feel them. They are all soul, but no flesh, no texture, and no weight. They can get in your head, but can't whack you up on the side of it.
Well, I don't know. I could just try it with this Kindle
You
here.
want to try? Let me get out of the way for that. I agree with that.
Do you?
Yes.
And so I'm looking at this book. I love the idea that you showed your book because it's just all underlined and there's check marks. And over here there's a star. And then you've written something to yourself, mirror child. I don't know what it means, but
I looked at the mirror image.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I love all the little things that are on the side and part of the paper.
What do you say, Eileen? Because you have
Well,
your Kindle.
I read on a Kindle because it's convenient. You know, I mean, she has to go to the library, she has to go to Amazon and buy it used and pay shipping and get it there and everything. I can start reading the day that we decide to buy the book, do that book. In fact, most of the time I order my next book for the book club at Sylvia's house. When we've talked about it, it's like, oh, okay, there it is. And there's a convenience to that. And I have them with me all the time. This fits in my purse. It's not really very heavy. So, I like the way a book feels, too. Sometimes I can't get a book on my Kindle, though rarely. And I like it because of the convenience.
And it doesn't bother your eyes?
Not really. I've read most of the last 2 years' books on this.
Really, the last whole 2 years?
Well, because it's just an easy way to get them. So I have them here on the menu. I can tell you what we've read because I've got them down here,
So you can refer to it.
And I'm sure there are ways to highlight and find things, but that's difficult for me. So most of the time, if I really have to lead a discussion, I find myself reading the book on the Kindle, but I'm taking my notes on a paper, on a pencil, or I'm writing my quotes out again so that I can be able to share them.
What about you, Gwen?
Well, I can see that because I have requested from the library numerous times, and they haven't come through in time for the book club or at all. So I don't know. I think this last time I fell right through the cracks because I had every good intention of reading that book, but it never got. I never was notified that it was available to me. And so I can see that. I like holding a book. I like going to the library to get it because I just really don't want my shelves filling up with a lot of books.
Yes, that's the other thing.
And so I don't really want to buy a lot of books. I'm not much of an Amazon person, although I've done that. And so always work, actually.
Who else besides Peg brings a Kindle or a iPad? Is it? It's not Rachel, is it?
I haven't
I think
noticed.
Rachel has an iPad, too, that she's brought before. And Michelle, who was with us for a while, read and had her notes and everything on her iPad because she's a whiz at it, a little bit younger than the rest of us. And they can do that technology.
No, Patty gets a book.
Patty gets a book.
I like the feel of a book.
I just think I smell books. I do.
Smell. Take a whiff.
I know.
This has a certain smell.
And it's
an
true.
older book.
I mean, if you have a book, and you're done with it, you can pass it on to a friend. And I know there's a way to do it with a Kindle, but I don't do that. So I used to give all of my books to my daughter, and she'd read them for her book club. And now I just have to tell her what I've read lately. So there's not as much sharing.
I get most of mine either downstairs at Heining Company or at Well Read Books here.
Well, we did look for our book that's for this next month downstairs.
Did
but
you have it?
We couldn't
No,
find
we
it.
couldn't
But
find
of
it.
course, that place is huge, and it's probably there, but we haven't located it yet. We did look in the several different
If you
areas.
let Eric or Brian know up front, they'll
Yeah,
find it.
he directed us to some of the areas, but it wasn't there. And of course, it's published in 1956 or something.
they're
so
really
we thought
good,
we might be
though.
able to find it there.
They're good at searching those out. Kate does that too.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, they've come through now. If I go in right away, the day if I'm there and I know right then and there, or you send it out by email, I have to get to it right away because it's a rural area. So like you,
With the library, right.
and
Well,
I
since we
really
couldn't
have
find
a-
it, but you might be able to look some other time and find that book there, and then that'll be surprising to
I'll see.
if you
That's
can find
my
it.
that's
your
my
goal.
challenge.
It's your
That's
goal.
You might even be more successful than I. When I went to get The Aviator's Wife from the library, I believe they told me
Popular.
that they had 90 copies in the system, but there were 97 people on the waiting list.
Wow.
So,
And see, here's the thing about Kathy. There was a question on Facebook yesterday, how many bookshelves are in your house? I have 13, and I thought, oh, that's a lot. And so I counted, and we have 12. And then I remembered one more after I responded. So Kathy buys books,
Yeah.
and I get a good deal on them too. I don't know if you noticed their tables out front there.
Yes.
I bought
Yes.
a couple there, but if I like it, I like to keep it and read it again because you get more.
Yes.
Or loan it out.
Like you
And
said.
I have a neat little journal thing just for loaning out books, and what a joke. Because I figure if they don't come back, they're meant to be on whatever journey they're going on, rather than
That's a
sitting
good
on my bookshelf doing nothing.
right.
And so, it's...
That's a good attitude. I
Well,
like
it
that.
is. And then years later, I'll find out that person liked it and gave it to so-and-so. And a couple of them have even ended up in other book clubs.
Yes.
And I like that they're discussed. One thing, I was just working on, Sarah just critiqued my discussion questions for my first novel, and I wanted their input on, do you think, because they've read the manuscript, that I've asked the important, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to pick out
Questions.
what you think would be most important to the reader, because you know what you think is most important as the author. And the feedback was really interesting between both Friday groups, what they thought, and of course they had suggestions for me, where I could move this or let this go, or maybe you already asked that in a way. And the real thing you want to be careful about, because sometimes we don't usually use those, but once in a while.
But they're in here.
Yes.
And we didn't
Sometimes-
even look at those questions last night.
I think we did. I don't know if it was this one. I love that one.
The hotel on the corner.
Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet is one of my, and the one below it.
Yep.
Those are actually two of my all-time favorite books.
That is my favorite.
pumpkin.
Did you read that, Gwen?
I've started that.
That
yes.
is so good.
And that's the one a different author had to finish because she died.
Oh, I had no idea.
Hmm?
No idea.
My daughter has very strong feelings about that.
No,
Like she doesn't like the idea that someone finishes it?
No, well, she didn't have a choice,
Okay.
but she felt the author herself would have finished it differently, and I just loved that book.
Oh.
But this one especially, and he's a Squaw Valley alumni, Jamie
Oh,
Ford.
really?
And I bought a second one. I don't know. I gave it to my sister Kelly. Her birthday's New Year's Eve, and I thought, oh, I got the perfect hardbound version, and on my hot little hands. And her birthday was a few days away, and I thought, a really thoughtful sister would give this to her other sister. But I never heard if she liked it or not. So, but I loved this. I just loved the
Why did
sweetness.
you like it?
There was such a sweet innocence to the Chinese-Japanese, their children, their
Okay.
childhood
Okay.
friendship.
All right.
And then you were talking about during break how one of our other members,
Yeah, she actually went to that hotel, and they have,
right
That's
after we
right.
read it, too.
That's
right. They have a whole
Ginger.
viewing
Yeah.
of things that were left from people who, Japanese that were going to internment camps, and they just left their property, and they have on display that was never picked up from
Yes.
those families.
I find that
Yes.
the personal effects of other people's lives, there was a hauntedness to this book. There was a sadness, a deep sadness to the tragedy of it.
No, I agree. That's good.
It was so
So you're
moving.
saying the whole book had a certain feeling of haunting.
Well, again, in contrast was the sweetness of their
The
friendship.
friendship between the little boy and
So
the
you
girl.
weren't
Okay.
overwhelmed by that.
Okay, that's neat.
You weren't. I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I liked it enough to read him. I've met him at Squaw Valley a couple of times, and he's just a nice
Has he written
person.
any others?
The one I gave my sister, and it had a neat title too that's escaping me at the moment.
And who's the
And I
author?
gave her that this New Year's. Jamie Ford.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we've read a lot of different kinds of
Oh, yeah, you
books.
gotta
Water
get into
for
that.
Elephants is his other one.
Oh.
I don't think that's his. Is that just an endorsement?
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about some of these on the table?
Well,
Because I haven't read this one.
Tracks?
Yeah. That's before my time, right?
Yeah, this is about a girl who goes across the whole continent of Australia by herself with 2 camels. And it took a while.
Oh, yeah.
This was my pick, Ann Patchett's State of Wonder, because I just love fun novels. This was a kind of a crazy book, but there's redemption in it, you know.
Very crazy.
Oh, but that's what makes it fun.
Little
So-
difference of opinion.
Yeah, nobody liked the ending because they
Okay,
couldn't
well,
they
we're
couldn't
gonna
really
have to
see
come
what it
back
was
to
about.
Hear what we think of all of these.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be back in a little bit, so don't go away.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN.
What does it take to have the best waffles?
It's live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, now we're on. Welcome back for the final segment of our Bookie Book Club. And I want to start with Gwen Friesen and ask you, what is your, because we all have different genres we read, your favorite, and what was your favorite book or books?
I have a favorite 4 so
Favorite
far.
4?
A favorite
So
4
like
for-
us.
so far. And the first one was Destiny of the Republic, which was about Garfield. And then the second one was Team of Rivals, which was about Lincoln.
Yeah, we
And-
all about balked with that one because it's 798 pages or something.
There was rebellion in the troops. There's no question about that. But those of us who did read it, we learned a lot.
Yes, we did.
And one of the things that I liked so well also was that when we had previously read Flight of the Earls, that what was happening in Europe and in Ireland and in 1846 with the potato famine and all of that, then when Lincoln is starting to run for office and Congress and all of that, it's at the same time. I liked all those tie-ins. And the Flight of the Earls talked about the Mexican-American War, and I know nothing about that because there's no end to what I don't know.
And we're still
And
learning.
the books in the book club just are expanding my world in my mind, so I really like that. And the last favorite of the 4 is The Girl of the Limberlost. And the reason I loved that, for as many, but 2 of them, is that it was a real place. The Limberlost was a real location. I loved in the book the description given, the flowers, the trees, the swampy area, the quicksand, the moths, the description, the beauty of the insects. I mean, I don't think of insects as being beautiful, but the way they were described, they must have been. And so that was a real place in a real time, and so I really did enjoy that. Not to mention, secondly, that I liked it because it had a happy ending.
Yeah, it did.
We like that.
And everybody was satisfied with happiness, so that was good for me, too.
My daughter recommended that when I was homeschooling her. That's when I first read it.
Yes, she did.
But I'll give you a little side info thing on Flight of the Earls. 'Cause
Okay.
you have a kindred soul in the author because he's actually a fellow bookie and a different type of bookie because he's part of my literary agency, Michael K.
I
Reynolds.
see. Okay.
And he has had 2 more come out that I'd be happy to loan you.
I'll read
That
them.
one was just very moving to me. And he's one of those authors so committed to research. Very.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate. I love
I
to
do
read
too,
historical
yes.
fiction, actually, which that book really is. But you just trust that the author has done their
Right.
homework
And that
that
it's
they're
accurate,
teaching you
yes.
the real truth. And I love my history that way. you know. I mean, Team of Rivals, there was a lot of history there, and that was absolutely accurate because it was biographical. A little bit harder for me to read than the fiction that's based on the story.
So what's your favorite genre? Or do you have a favorite?
I really like fiction, novels, you know.
Contemporary?
Not real contemporary, because then you have this secular viewpoint that I don't appreciate often. So I have to be pretty particular. And I do love historical fiction, like that one there. My Name is Mary Sutter. Gwen wasn't in the book club when we read that, but that would have tied in too, because it was during Lincoln's time. And when we're reading Lincoln's book, I remembered pieces of that. In fact, I have it on my Kindle, and I went back and looked up those events. You know, so we know that that author really did do the job well and gave us true history.
And it was really well written.
Yes.
Well written.
Yes, it was.
So, another one of my favorites. I loaned it to someone that does historical search for Civil
but
War.
This is an author that I love, Kate Morton. Good fiction. Just, you know, there's...
Well,
I
it's a
love
mystery, and I love mysteries, too.
Yeah, most of the stuff she's written is sort of a family mystery thing. I've read 2 of her other books that we haven't read in the book club, but maybe I'll make the book club read them, because they all have sort of a twist in them that keeps you wondering.
That's
you know,
what mysteries do.
Right, that's what mysteries do, and then you want to find out what it's really about. And I think it's just well written, and I love that kind of stuff.
I love well written. Some of the ones we picked is like just, you want to keep reading and reading. You don't want it to end.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's so becomes a part of you, and it's just so beautiful.
Very much.
This one, Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. Did you read this?
I read that one, but I was in
beautiful wording, you know, and it's about life. It's about different stages of life, especially for women. And whether we're raising young children or whether we're empty nesters. And she just kind of ties it in with different kinds of seashells that she's picked up along the shore. And
Was that made into a movie?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't.
And it was fun to read this
know
one.
That title from somewhere.
That Anne Morrow Lindbergh actually wrote, and then to read The Aviator's Wife, which is who she is.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have a nice tie-in there, too.
And what about you? What's your favorite?
You know, I was sitting here thinking, are you going to guess? Oh, I love symbolic.
I'm not surprised.
But you like old stuff, too. You suggested a lot of books that you read that have been more classics.
The Blue Umbrella.
Oh, that was
and the Violet Flash.
And the Violet Flash. And I love Stargirl. That they said something besides saying a story. There was more in it that was very symbolic, that I had a wonderful rush just in my own self about.
You like analogies, too.
Yes, I do, yes. So
what was that other one that, oh gosh, I can't remember. I have a list I've read with you for 4 years.
Yeah, well, The Alchemist?
No, that wasn't it.
But
I've had some disappointing ones, too.
Yeah, well, we all have, and because, you know, we like different things. So.
See, I'd read these before I came to you. Some of them I'd already read.
Oh, had you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
another one I really loved was a young boy it was called Cold Sassy Tree. I would suggest it to anybody and have fun with it. And he is saying things. The little boy is the narrator, but he's saying things underneath that you just love to catch.
Oh, I loved Major Pettigrew's Last Stand.
Did
too.
you? Did you? Yeah.
That was
now look how excited we get when we look at these. Look at these and go,
and see Wallace down
I mean,
here.
I can't believe that we've read all these books. Really, I was not really much of a reader.
Really?
No.
That surprises me.
Yeah. And when Sylvia said she wanted to do a book club, I said, sure, let's do a book club, because it gave me kind of an impetus to read. You know, you had a deadline and everything.
Yeah,
and I had somebody telling me what to read. I mean, I go into that bookstore downstairs and it's like, it's overkill, you know?
I want to.
I don't know where to
I
begin.
want to just sit there and just
Read
Yeah, she
all
just
day.
pulled a book off the shelf and started flipping through it.
Oh, it's just, yeah. It was
But I like being told, we're going to read this book next month, and you have, 31 days to do it in, and then we're going to talk about it. So it's been fun. It's been fun even to find the books, whether you order them on your Kindle, or I used to order, you can get a lot of those old books, 99 cents plus shipping. Or I would send my husband to the used bookstore because, we've got a credit over there. And I would say, this is a book I need this month. Go find it for me. And it gave him something to hunt for.
Yeah.
So
Do your husbands end up reading any of the books? Mine does, once in a while.
my husband
Wow,
suggested this one.
Well, that's what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, he
And
had
I
read
loved
it.
this.
He read
Tell
it
him thank
first.
you. Tell him
and,
Mary thank
and
you.
said, I think your book club would enjoy reading that.
Wow, that's neat to hear that
Good
your
for
husband
him.
enjoys them.
Not all of them.
My husband hasn't read it.
And when Gwen wanted to read Team of Rivals, I'm thinking, that's the kind of book that I probably have on my bookshelf, and that's what my husband would read, and so I'm looking, there it is.
Oh, it was there.
So I didn't have to read that on the Kindle because we had it already.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I don't think he finished it because he didn't get through that many pages.
Oh, really?
I took his
You know what, Kathy?
marker out.
Even though you are not in, you don't come as much as you would
Used
like
to.
to, and as much as you used to, we talk about some of the things that you've taught us about looking for different things in a book, and so we feel like you've been a real important part of our book club. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I
because
mean
you bring an author's viewpoint,
Yes.
by
Yes,
saying,
right.
Yes.
Or I try
authors.
to do it as a
Yes.
reader, though, when I'm with you, because then I get to be a reader.
But we need an author's viewpoint sometime because we're saying, now why did they put that in there? And you're
Right.
like, well, because that's what authors have been told they need to add.
But we don't all do that.
Well, good, because sometimes
But
we don't like that influence.
there-
Let the authors write with what they feel like writing.
And that's something I want to ask you. In the books we've read, sometimes I feel it just flows so beautifully. Because, we turn it in and the editor edits it after we've critiqued it and
Oh.
rewritten it. And so as the author, you don't know what you're getting back or being
Oh.
asked to change. And you're just
Oh.
waiting to see.
What did they cut out? And what do I need
Well,
to
what
fix?
do I? And so for the books, sometimes when we're reading them, I can see where I felt maybe the author was still going off in that bent, and I would have
Wow.
liked them to still do it. One in particular I won't mention, but and then on the other part, sometimes I can see it where an editor has probably come in and helped the author.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Well, and sometimes
I
that's
want to
probably
get good at that.
necessary.
I want to.
I think we all could. You know what?
You ought to be
I-
able to identify
I know.
those points.
I am so devastated when I can't make it. I literally, it's a long drive, but it's so worth it for me. And we're winding down. We're going to have to say goodbye. I wish we could talk to you a lot longer because these ladies have so much to share. I have learned so much from them, and our in-depth is, I think, a rare thing that I have a great appreciation for.
And sometimes our book club meetings go on the next day, because we'll phone each other
miss that.
and talk about it because we're so
Yes,
excited about
yes.
what the experience we had the night before.
Well, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next month, and I hope you have a book club. If you don't, start one.
Yeah.
Bye.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN.
For decades, Manacero and